This is your Lynn's Warriors Weekend edition. Joining us today is Josephine Crisostomo. She is the Director of Education, Training, and Advocacy at LifeWay Network here in New York. The mission at LifeWay is ending human trafficking, reclaiming lives. The website, and I urge all of you, go to it, lifewaynetwork.org. Also on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at LifeWay Network. It's very easy. Everything is LifeWay Network. Joe Crisostomo, welcome to Lynn's Warriors. Thank you so much for being here. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Lynn. Happy holidays. It's great to be here. So I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you more. We're going to leave it at that. You know, Joe, I always like to start interviews or discussions with how somebody got into the position they're in. And I'd like you to share with us a little bit of how you got into helping others, because I really do call it a calling. Anybody working with trafficking and sexual exploitation, it is not easy, as we know. So I like to think of this as a true calling to the job. So tell us whatever you want to share about yourself with our listeners and our viewers.
Indeed. Thank you, Lynn. Yes, I actually got into this work. I've been a mental health advocate for the past 10 years in New York City. So going around the community, going around to the different boroughs and speaking to youth, speaking to community members about mental health, destigmatizing the conversation of mental health. So through that lens, I went into doing trauma-informed trainings, trauma-informed work, which kind of led me into learning more about anti-human trafficking and the anti-human trafficking movement here specifically in New York City. So learning through that, I kind of fell into LifeWay and being the director of education, being able to do kind of the similar work with the mental health advocacy, but now for human trafficking is so fulfilling to me and it's so heartwarming for me to do.
Excellent. I'd like to let's go back a little bit. We know that Lifeway was started by Sister Joan Dauber. Back, I guess you can correct me here, 2006, 2007.
That's
So
correct.
we go back. There's some, in some fashion. Let's fast forward now. Explain. Now, remember, everybody doesn't know what you and me know.
Yeah.
Your definition of human trafficking, sexual exploitation, labor trafficking. I always feel like, Joe, we forget to talk about labor trafficking, or we forget to talk about, I don't mean like you and me, I just mean in general. We pretty much talk about sex trafficking, right?
Right.
We don't talk enough about labor trafficking. And I also don't think we talk enough about, although Lifeway does a good job with it, like, what is that called? Like ethical resourcing, like what's in beauty products coming from other
Right.
nations, or what's in your chocolate, like that's a whole big thing. Okay. So give us, the definition of all of this, the trafficking, the exploitation, and also explain the vision and mission of Lifeway Network, because I put Lifeway Network up. You've heard me say this, Joe. It is a warrior, the prime example, safe housing, but I want to hear you talk, not me going on and on. So fill us in about everything.
Indeed. So human trafficking, the definition that I go by most when I explain it to the community members, is the act of recruiting, harboring, transferring, or receiving of a person by the means of force, coercion, defraudment, in order to get them to do a purpose, whether that may be commercial sex or labor. So when it comes to labor, a lot of times, as you said, we think mostly about sex trafficking. A lot of times we have the unfortunate notion of thinking about like the vans outside with no windows and someone will trap you in there. With labor trafficking, it can happen as easy as someone offering you a grandiose job opportunity that you think, wow, look at me, how lucky I can be, and then them then forcing you or coercing you into doing either additional hours you did not agree to, or not paying you at all. So now it's like you're indebted to this person. You're indebted to this person who offered you this grandiose opportunity, but now you're unable to leave that situation. Or they may say that they'll call ICE in the case of a lot of our undocumented community folks. They may say they may call ICE or other services in order to get you deported. So it's very complicated in that sense of thinking that it's as simple as someone just picking you up from the street to how it can actually happen in real form.
Wow, I have to digress for a second. I'm very concerned. I live here in New York City, and I'm seeing a lot of women, and they look like teenage girls, selling the water bottles, selling the cut up fruit, going to construction sites. I've never really seen that in New York City. Okay. until fairly recently. I want to say over the last year. I'm very concerned for these women, although I see everybody buying things from them. So I think to myself, okay, good. They're making some cash. They're
Right.
making money. I don't see any. Sometimes I kind of step to the side, like in a building, and kind of watch for a few minutes just to see how people treat them. Nobody's mistreating them that I saw. Okay. What do you think about that? Do we just I just thought of this because I'm seeing so much of this now. Like, do we just let that go and let them make their money so they can live? Do we think maybe they're being trafficked? Like,
Right.
what do we do? Because I want to jump in, but again, they're probably happy to make the money. They don't want to hear from me,
And what's
right?
the right way to do it, right? How do you approach this person? And what I always explain to our community folks and our community at large is that the more you know the signs, the more you know about human trafficking, the different ways that it can happen, and of course, the more you know the situation of this individual that you're thinking could be in the situation, the more you know. The more you know in general, the more you can ask. So a lot of times I say, for our younger folks, don't necessarily approach anyone directly and ask, "Are you being trafficked?" That's not the
Right.
right way to go about it. Folks will probably not respond to that. Or for a lot of the survivors and victims within trafficking, they themselves don't understand that they're going through what they're going through, that they're in a trafficking situation. To them, this is normal life. This is what everyone has to do in order to get by. So I always say, just learn more, keep on learning more signs, keep on learning what support services you can go to. So it may not be that you necessarily go out to the street and approach these women, but maybe you can get some other organization like Lifeway to kind of come and do some type of work with you, some support with you, so that we're either giving them some support services where they can, if they are in a trafficking situation, they can go to a community-based organization and continue to receive support services, or whether that may be increasing that a little bit more and calling law enforcement in order to get them the support that they may need. And when I say law enforcement, we're not saying, NYPD or the police directly, but someone within maybe the Homeland Security investigations, someone within the trafficking divisions within the PD that can then support that individual either getting out of their situation or either finding supports that can help them try to navigate the situation that they're in.
Great advice. And I will be adding to this video, like all of those steps so people can really review it and know what to do. Because I think, Joe, one of my number one questions is, well, I have two questions that are asked to me constantly. Why is this happening? Like, why traffic is happening? And then what do I do? I always say, what would your answer be? And then I'll tell you my answer. It's very simplistic why all this is happening.
Yeah.
This increased exploitation. What's your answer to that?
My answer is, and this is through what I've learned through this movement, is that traffickers and folks that buy either sex or commercial labor in these forms of trafficking, they're looking for vulnerabilities. They're looking to fill in some vulnerability that this person needs, whether that may be the vulnerability of needing financial stability, cash at that time to feed their families, feed their loved ones, or whether that may be that love, that connection of love, that connection of relating to someone, building community with someone. For unfortunately, when it comes to sex trafficking, a lot of the victims and survivors that we've heard from have been folks in vulnerable populations. So LGBTQ youth that have not been accepted in their communities. It could be youth that have in the past been runaway or homeless youth themselves. So looking for that stability, looking for that home setting, that community setting. So I say that's one of the main reasons that happens. Folks that are looking for vulnerable populations and then looking to fill that gap in their own means, in their own way.
And I'm going to throw in because there's a lot of money to be made
And that's
off
it.
of vulnerable. I get right down to it because, but you touched on something I want to just expand on for a minute. I mean, obviously, I'm like white and blonde and blue eyed, right? Um, I'm constantly upset, Joe, that a lot of focus, even media attention, is never put on our girls and women, boys and men too, of color. Okay.
Right.
We know, sometimes I see these stories. I don't even know how to say this to you, but I'll just say it like, okay, maybe it's like a cute blonde girl from Texas. I'm just making something up right now. Her parents may have the mean. First of all, she has parents. A lot of our vulnerable people who get involved in all of this, it's they don't have parents, or they don't have parents that care about them, or they have drug-addled parents, nobody looking for them. They might be victims of abuse, right? And they have to run away. Kids have to run away if you're being beaten up or something, right? And so these parents who do have means are able to, maybe pay like a private investigator to go after and look, because we know the resources are always lacking in this entire area. Okay. And so I'm always pushing for the media to cover stories more and more about our vulnerable populations. You're in New York, I'm in New York. We are surrounded by this,
Indeed.
and always across our country. That is a major push of the Warriors, to get more media to cover a story about, a young woman, a girl, boy, you may never even hear about. And I get very upset, Joe, because I've had people say to me like, "Oh, who cares about them?"
Mm,
People you wouldn't even think say. So we have our work cut out for us, but this is the warrior way. We care about everybody. I want you to explain. Lifeway has 2 safe houses here in New York. That is something that is needed across the country. We don't have places to put people, to take them in. Tell us what you want to share about the safe houses, and give us sort of, the landscape of why you have such a high success rate, okay, with the victims, the survivors of the trafficking, and give us a little like input. What's a day like in one of the houses for the women? And it's only for women, Lifeway Network,
that's
18 and above. We're not talking about kids here or men. We're talking now about women. So give us the landscape.
Definitely. Thank you, Lynn, for setting that. So at Lifeway, we envision a world where all survivors of trafficking, well, first that human trafficking is abolished, that we end human trafficking, eradicate the whole movement, but that every survivor is strong, connected, and free. So through our safe housing program, we have 2 across New York City, and we house, or we provide housing for women survivors over the age of 18, as you mentioned. But these can be women that come from any walks of life, domestic and foreign born. So since our founding in 2007, we've housed up to 155 women from 38 different nations and countries.
Wow.
So we're speaking about women that come not speaking English at all, speaking maybe very minor, very, very limited English. Women that don't have their GED or don't have any skills in America that they can
Mm.
utilize. So what we do at Lifeway is that we provide a safe housing program, in the sense this isn't a shelter. We're here to provide these women up to 12 months of shelter, where they're learning life skills, where we're helping them be financially independent after those 12 months, where we're helping them heal, we're helping them build community. So the way that we do that is we provide once a week, we provide community dinners. And that with those community dinners, we bring everyone together as a family. We bring everyone together to sit down, to share each other's cultures, to share maybe a food item from their own cultures, to speak to one another and disclose what's going on throughout their days or their lifetime in that time. And also providing workshops. So after the community dinners, after we've had that community setting, we continue on by then inviting one of our volunteers to come into the houses and do a workshop, whether that may be something as simple like what's couponing and how can we coupon, how can we save when going to the supermarket and buying our own groceries, or whether that may be how do we open up a bank account in America, how do we open up a bank account in New York City, how do we navigate all the documents that we may need. So we offer all those type of workshops in order to increase their independence. Our goal, and we hope that these women's goals after the 12 months that they're with us in our safe housing program, that they're able to live independently, that they do not have to go back to the means of trafficking in order to survive, that they are then supported and have the resources to live independently and live free from trafficking.
Because you brought up something, that's the problem. Because we don't have this type of program that is so wonderful at Lifeway, across the board, across the country. Let's even throw in across the globe for most part. Many of these victims will go back to trafficking. It's all they know, or it's their only way to make money, and they're psychologically damaged. So it's easier than going through all this. And that is the importance of LifeWay Network, that we continue building LifeWay Network, that we strive for, more housing for everybody. And that being said, lifewaynetwork.org is the place, everybody. Donations, volunteer, Amazon wish list. You have no excuse. Go to the dollar store, get some tube socks. I don't care. Everybody, I really believe, Joe, like now, 2023, we're almost in 2024. Our world has changed. Our country definitely has changed. We'll leave that for another program. Like everybody, no, but everybody now has to step up in one way or the other. I don't care. Your handle is right there for your Instagram. If people shared the information on their platforms, if they retweet it at Lifeway Network, we do have a duty, and we have a duty for our youth, I think, that we create these warriors. It's part of your life. You go to school, you do community service. I'm very much about in the community because I believe that snowballs out into the bigger picture. I want to get into the education. It is so important. Raise awareness, education. Tell us how you're finding that, because I get a lot of pushback as far as that doesn't happen with my children. My kids wouldn't do that.
Right.
Parents are busy and overwhelmed. We don't have time. I am almost thinking education has to go to the caregivers, the family members, not the kids. So,
Right.
so they understand what is going on, whether it's real time or online. Fill us in about education with human trafficking.
I definitely agree with you there. So our education department at Lifeway, we go around within the Hudson Valley, across New York City, any community setting where I'm invited to, and just do these kind of talks, do these kind of human trafficking 101, I like to call it. But of course, the conversation can go either way, wherever the conversation leads. But I definitely agree with you. I have a specific niche with youth and youth advocates across New York City, but I fully agree and fully am one to commit that if the parents aren't involved in these conversations, then the conversation is just leading one way. So in order for me to have a conversation with youth about human trafficking, how they can stay safe while being online, because now youth are online. That's the way of life now, being online 24/7. How to stay protected when being online from trafficking perpetrators that are out there that are navigating online. Social media sources and pages, but also how can parents be aware of how trafficking happens? How can parents be aware that while their child may not be looking to be trafficked, I don't think anyone in this world is looking to be trafficked, the vulnerabilities that are out there, the many ways that perpetrators can look for these vulnerabilities, excuse me, and find a way to their child. So definitely getting my way of going about it is getting into school settings, coming into schools and talking, especially with our high school students that can grasp the concept a little bit more. Then going into the community, going to community agencies, going to different community-based organizations, and speaking then to the parents, speaking then to service providers that are providing services to these youth or providing services across the board, having these conversations. But of course, I need to be invited to these conversations, right? I
Exactly.
need to be invited to these spaces. So that's a major part of going across and raising awareness. The way I raise awareness is going to different advocates offices, going to our different council members offices, saying, hey, this is Lifeway, this is the work that we do. Now where can we get in? Where can we go and speak to the community about the realities of human trafficking, and going from there. But I always say the earlier we start, the better. So of course, speaking to high school youth is amazing, but I would love to be able to get in and speaking to middle school youth, speaking to even younger youth about the realities. And it doesn't have to be a direct conversation on human trafficking, but we can start the conversation about how to stay safe online, how to stay safe while walking in the community, while getting to know one another. How do we build healthy relationships, right? That's very important. And then and then heading into a conversation with the community at large about trafficking.
Joe, you bring something up. I mean, it really, because again, we live in a digital world that is not going away. So we have to learn to navigate, right? I actually think now it's like K through 12, age appropriate kind of conversations,
Yes.
because that's where we're at, right? And we know the ages are getting younger and younger for all of this predation. I say everybody's vulnerable. You're online, open internet, everybody's vulnerable. But there's also that thing, Joe, we have to empower our girls and
Yes.
and boys, but that's a different thing, like how to treat girls, young women, like empower them. You're worth more than that. Or why do they fall for this guy who they don't even know on the internet who tells them they're beautiful and then they start the conversation. It's a stranger. Like that's where I want to try to make a dent also and get in there. Like, come on, girls, you don't have to do that, or you don't have to lift your top up, or you don't. We have to empower them. They are really worthy of so much more. And this whole respect type of thing, which I think our society has lost altogether. And all I can say is look what the adults are doing, and this is what the kids are all watching. So this is a tough one. I always say kids are watching, even if you don't think they're watching, because I've had a lot say to me, my mother and father do this, or my older sibling does that. What do you think? I want to point out you will go anywhere: churches, synagogues, community centers, um,
Indeed.
nursing homes. You will go into private groups. You'll go into private homes. I'm right there with you. You will have an audience of 1 or 1,000. You want to spread the messaging of all of this and how we can intervene, prevent, and educate. So that is what we need to do. This has to be part of, like, we live, we eat, we go to school, human trafficking, education, raising
Right.
awareness. Now,
Indeed. Yes.
I love your idea of the community dinners because I always think community equals family. You know,
Yes.
if you're setting a table, you're eating together, you're cleaning up the dishes, it opens up a bond. At least I think, like, you start talking. A
Hmm.
lot of these women, they don't talk, or kids I work with, they don't talk. You have to gain their trust. So I love that. Community creates change, and that's what Lifeway is doing. Tell us what you have going on. You've done some wonderful get-togethers, and obviously everybody, it is holiday time. I know everybody's overwhelmed. You got to open up those wallets and those purses, and you got to give a little. I am here to stand up for Lifeway Network and the work Joe does, and the wonderful team she works with, that we have to help. We have to. LifewayNetwork.org. You'll find more information. What do you have going on December 7th?
Indeed. So December 7th, it's our first winter soiree,
I
winter
love it.
social soiree, where we'll be introducing the art of kintsugi. So we're inviting community folks to come out. It's going to be in Midtown Manhattan. So if you're available December 7th at 6:30, please reach out to lifewaynetwork.org and we will be able to connect you. It'll be a great just few hours of us, as you said, building that community around the table, learning about the art form of kintsugi, and having some drinks, having some conversations with other community folks that want to learn more about Lifeway, want to hear about how they can continue to support throughout the year. So please watch out for our events. We have upcoming events every year in May, Lynn, as you know. We have our fundraising gala, our annual fundraising gala, our ATNL, we call it. So please just look out, go onto Lifeway, look at our events, our upcoming events. We're trying to host at least once event a year, or excuse me, once event a month,
A
in
month.
order to a month, yes, in order to increase that awareness and let folks know we're here, we're doing this great work, and how can you join this advocacy group? How can you join this fight?
Because again, Joe, everybody can do something, the tiniest thing. And
Indeed.
again, that's a question I get, like, what can I do? There is so much you can do. And even look, money's always the crux of everything. Money is needed. Lifeway needs money to run these houses, correct? What does
Yes.
it cost per day, like for one woman you have in the house? What's the price that would cover her being there, her food? What is that? Fill us in about that.
I think it's about something about like 6,000 per day, and that includes housing, that includes the food, that
$6,000 per day?
I believe it's something like that. So it's ensuring, and again, we house up to 60 women at a time. So it's ensuring that all these women have the support services. As we said, it includes having the food on the table, having shelter, but also having those support services, having that financial workshop, that financial literacy. How can we utilize all these funds in order to continue to support our the women that we serve? But outside of that, as you mentioned, the money, of course, is the major portion of it because that's the way that we run our safe housing program.
Mm.
But if folks don't have the funds to do that, we still take in kind donations. So any donations that any folks have, especially now during the winter season, coats, jackets, blankets, comforters, things that the women can utilize. But also if you're an expert in some type of service. If you're an expert in financial literacy, if you're an expert in life skills, we would love for you to volunteer your hours and expertise with us, because we feel like again building that community is what makes us run. So keeping up with allowing our survivors, excuse me, to learn from you as well, to learn from what you have to give.
I'm glad you brought that up, that it's not always money. Of course, I'm going to say again, the money is, the most
Yeah,
important thing to keep everything running, the houses and the clothes and the food and all that. But if you are, you have an expertise in something, uh, everything is welcome, right, Joe? Like you'll
yeah.
make it happen with that. I do want to, before we leave, and I'll be seeing you. I have to sign up. I will be seeing you next week. So I'm very excited. I've got a lot of things I'm gonna bring with me. Unfortunately, you will have to probably carry them back somewhere, but
I'll figure out a way.
we'll do it, or I'll figure out a way to deliver things so I don't burn you. I'm very concerned. I haven't heard a lot of noise. We're both LifeWay Network, Lynn's Warriors. We're part of New Yorkers for the Equality Model, a group.
Yes.
What are you hearing? Because I'm not hearing a lot about this legalizing of prostitution for New York State. That is really, I like to say, legalizing pimping, trafficking, and brothel owning. Are you hearing anything you can share with us? Because it's on my end kind of quiet.
Yeah, I haven't heard much, I'll say, in the recent months, but I know in the summer, NIFEM, New York for Equality Model, was working really heavily on just spreading the awareness of what is the New York for Equality Model, right? In New York State, as you just mentioned, we're trying to push the legalization of prostitution as sex work, which, yes, I understand that part of it, but how can we also protect our survivors? How can we also protect our victims that are in trafficking by means that is not their own? This wasn't something that they chose to do. It's something that they had to do. So how can we protect them? How can we provide them? So that's why we stand for partial decriminalization, where we protect our survivors, protect our victims, but prosecute those traffickers, prosecute those buyers of this sex work, and how can we all just stay protected in that way. So haven't heard much, but I know that there's more to come. There's been a lot of legislation going to DC, a lot of letters being signed and being created for our council members and our stakeholders. So there's more to come, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, good, because I had this, it was actually a nightmare the other night that I had read a headline that our governor, Kathy Hochul, had to address 150 bills before the end of the year
Yeah.
and sign off or what. And I was like, oh no, I hope I don't wake up and hear about this. But again, it's called the equality model. We want everybody to get on board. We want exit strategies, holistic, caring for women, that we have lots of studies, right, Joe, that say this is a form of trafficking, coercion, force into prostitution. It's not that old argument of, I'm a sex worker. It's empowering. We don't go for that. Okay. We know a lot of these women and girls are very vulnerable, men and boys too, and forced into this. So I want everybody equality model to be looking up and doing their homework. Give us, Joe, some final thoughts. What do you want everybody to know? Share with us in this holiday season of giving, of hope. What do you want everybody to know?
I just want everyone to know that Lifeway is here doing this great work. We provide support to survivors, and we want you to know that we can utilize your expertise. We can utilize your efforts, what you're doing in the community to continue to amplify and continue to support our survivors. So for community folks listening out there, please reach out to us. Please find different ways that you can support us, whether that may be volunteering, whether that may be you want to spread awareness and you want to continue to increase the voices of survivors and of human trafficking. You want to let the community know what is going on, the realities of human trafficking. Invite us to your rooms, invite us to your communities, and let's do this work together. So in the sense of the holidays, just remember that we're all in this together. We're doing the great work together, and we're here to support one another.
There you go. I love it. Hope, healing, community coming together. You can start this week coming up December 7th. If you're in the New York area, don't be shy. The information will be in the body of this video. LifeWayNetwork.org is the way you can find out more information about things you can do to help Lifeway, to help women, to help in this movement against this, what I call slavery. I don't even think trafficking is descriptive enough. We have more slavery today, unbelievable, in the United States, we'll focus on that for right now, than any other time in history. How can we accept this? We can't. Lifeway Network is not accepting it. Lynn's Warriors is not accepting it. Again, lifewaynetwork.org. You see the Instagram handle at Lifeway Network. It's also Twitter. Everything's Lifeway Network. Josephine, Thank you so much for spending time with me today, helping the public. There's never enough talk about, raising awareness, education. Everybody listening, we want to get Joe into your homes, into your community centers, churches, synagogues. We don't care, schools. She will go. I'll pick her up and drive her anywhere and get her there to teach, right? We want to teach our youth. We want to teach our caregivers and parents. We want to teach everybody about that. Hashtag, you're a shining example, Joe, of a warrior. I say that, my hashtag community creates change because you're doing that. Again, I want to mention LifeWayNetwork.org. Joe, happy holidays to you and everybody at Lifeway, but I'll be seeing you next week. So
Yes,
uh,
indeed.
I'll say that again to you again next week. Thank you so much. We will speak again soon. And thank you, thank you, thank you for being so invested and dedicated and committed. We need more Joes and more Lifeways. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Lynn. Thank you for allowing this platform for me to come through and provide some information. So thank you.
We'll speak again soon. Thank you.